And even though my name is probably put on a list somewhere within dark matter, whenever I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though people ask me how to hack their girlfriend's Facebook account every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though the Dark Army starts following me for days every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though someone from the DoD starts following me on LinkedIn every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though my apps suddenly close and I start hearing strange clicking noises on my phone every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though people ask me how to make money on the darknet every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though webmasters around the world add my IP to their blacklist every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though people turn off their phone, yank the battery out, and go sit in that corner of their house that gets no Wi-Fi, every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries.
And even though my way of learning is to heave a wild and unpredictable monkey wrench into the machinery, this is NoirNet Diaries.
And even though my dad still doesn't own a cell phone because he's just tech illiterate, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though hoodies go up and drawstrings get pulled tight every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I get downvoted every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I have to re-update the keys on my license to hack every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though a Mirai botnet is launched somewhere in the world every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though some bro is going to ask me how to make money on the darknet every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though the F3 key on my keyboard hasn't done a single thing for 20 years, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though when I show my password to other people, they say it's very strong, I still sometimes get hacked. This is Darknet Diaries. And even though I'm still waiting for my long-lost uncle, who happened to be a Nigerian prince, to send me his inheritance, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though my mind is being controlled by spurious transmissions from space every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though somewhere in the world a company was just breached and the CISO said, "How is that possible? We're PCI compliant," this is Darknet Diaries. And even though when someone reports a security problem, some companies will just send a cease and desist letter instead of actually patching their servers, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though when my dad has a computer problem and he calls me up to help him, I remind him about how he used to nag on me to get off the computer when I was in high school. And if I did, I wouldn't be able to help him now. This is Darknet Diaries. And even though when management sends me an email, sometimes I write back with just unsubscribe, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though there's some CEOs somewhere out there that are just now figuring out what blockchain is and think it's a cutting-edge technology, when actually it's 10 years old now, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though a dumpster fire erupts somewhere in the world every time I say it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though cyber actors are working on new cyber pathogens to wage cyber attacks on cyber bullies who have too much cyber sex, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though when I meet up with my other tinfoil hat wearing friends, I secretly use aluminum foil, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though some people still insist on pushing code to production on a Friday afternoon, when that's really a bad idea, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I sometimes sit and wonder what time zone are people in on the moon, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though back in my day we didn't have USB, we only had USA, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though a few hours of trial and error will always save you a few minutes of looking at the manual, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though for some weird reason I think 1024 is a perfectly round number, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I'm in security, it doesn't mean I'm insecure. This is Darknet Diaries. And even though I would sometimes get in trouble for reserving a conference room all day because I thought my cubicle was just too small, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I upgraded the RAM on my computer just so I could run Slack better, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I pour gas on my firewall whenever I really need to stoke that fire inside it, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I don't back up my data because I know the NSA does it for me, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I root around in an HTML ball pit just for fun sometimes, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I keep getting in trouble for placing realistic plastic snakes under the data center floor tiles, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though when you ASCII stupid question, you get a stupid ANSI, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though if you put 1,000,000 monkeys in front of 1,000,000 keyboards, one will eventually write a Python program, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though I've got nothing against bots, some of my best friends are bots, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though when I was a little kid I used to watch cartoons where bears lived up in the clouds, but the reality is mole rats live in the clouds, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though in the future everyone will have 15 minutes of privacy, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though when a SQL query walked into a bar, it went up to 2 tables and asked, "Can I join you?" This is Darknet Diaries. And even though Linux is actually pretty user-friendly, it's just particular about what users it's friendly with. This is Darknet Diaries. And even though the NSA is one of the few government organizations that actually listens to you, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though when something calls itself serverless, you and I both know there's really a server back there somewhere doing all the work. This is Darknet Diaries. And even though astronauts use Linux because you can't open Windows in space, this is Darknet Diaries. You know what? I don't like calling it a war room. I'd rather call it a peace room, since peace is our actual goal. This is Darknet Diaries. And even though I have paper hands when it comes to holding cryptocurrency, and diamond hands when it comes to holding paper currency, this is Darknet Diaries. And even though... Alright, I can't think of a joke, so let's try this. Okay, Google, tell me a joke.
Your privacy.
What? This is Darknet Diaries. And even though they never caught the hacker. Why? Well, because he ran somewhere. This is Darknet Diaries. And even though I'll be on break next week, I'm still going to my hacker support group that I'm in. It's called Anonymous. This is Darknet Diaries. Hey, what do you call 2 monkeys that share one Amazon account? Prime mates. This is Darknet Diaries. There's this one time where I went to New York and I had a fake $50 bill. It was like twice the size of a normal bill. And someone on the street came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to buy a fake Rolex watch?" I said, "Hell yeah, is $50 good?" And they said, "Yeah." And I pulled out my giant fake $50 bill and said, "Okay, here." And they were like, "What the heck?" And I'm like, "Hey, fake watch for fake money, right?" This is Darknet Diaries. Doing math in binary is slow. You have to go bit by bit. This is Darknet Diaries. Hey, I just found out that Albert Einstein was a real person. All this time I just thought he was a theoretical physicist. This is Darknet Diaries. In the future, everyone will have 15 minutes of privacy. This is Darknet Diaries. I love pressing the F5 key. It's so refreshing. This is Darknet Diaries. I like to play chess against computers, but I don't get upset when the computer beats me because I'll always just challenge them to a round of kickboxing afterwards, and I always win that. This is Darknet Diaries. I renamed my printer the other day. It's now called Bob Marley because it's always jamming. This is Darknet Diaries. I went to a wedding the other day. Both the bride and groom are Wi-Fi technicians, and oh, let me tell you, the reception was great. This is Darknet Diaries. And even though I think a rubber mallet is a perfectly good hardware troubleshooting tool, this is Darknet Diaries. When I was a kid, my grandpa used to tell me to get a job cleaning Windows, so I did. But I was also pretty good at cleaning Macs and Linux machines too. This is Darknet Diaries. The one nice thing about getting SIM swapped is you don't get any annoying telemarketers anymore. Sometimes it's so bad, but I'm not sure which is worse anyway. This is Darknet Diaries. Do you know the name of the chemical that's released in your brain after you see funny cat pictures on the internet? It's called dopamine. This is Darknet Diaries. Hey HD, one last question for you.
Yeah.
When you're reviewing someone's code, can you tell me what bad code looks like?
No comment.
This is Darknet Diaries. I was blowing up a balloon the other day and I was thinking, inside this is CO2, right? And it's compressed, right? So why not call it CO2.zip? This is Darknet Diaries. I had an idea for a movie where a retired CIA agent is searching for his daughter in Paris. Turns out that movie was Taken. This is Darknet Diaries. Oh, and hey, if you ever have questions about TCP/IP, I know the pro to call. Get it? Pro to call? Forget it. This is Darknet Diaries. I think I lost an electron. Yep, I'm positive. This is Darknet Diaries. Oh, I have this great joke I'm working on about documentation, but it's not done yet. This is Darknet Diaries. How do you add flavor to an algorithm? Toss in a Boolean cube. This is Darknet Diaries. One time I got hired to work somewhere, and they told me what the starting pay was, but then they said in 90 days, the pay gets increased by 20%. So I said, okay, great. Then I'd like to start in 90 days. This is Darknet Diaries. Fun fact, if you search for a lighter on Amazon, it'll give you 6,000 matches. This is Darknet Diaries. A hacker went into a bar, and he said, give me your strongest link. This is Darknet Diaries. What does a baby computer call its father? Data. This is Darknet Diaries. Hey, pop quiz. What weighs more, a gallon of water or a gallon of butane? Water weighs more. Butane is a lighter fluid. This is Darknet Diaries. What blood type is your computer? Mine is definitely type O. This is Darknet Diaries. I saw a really big cell tower the other day and I just walked up to it and I looked up all the way at the top and I was like, whoa, that's really high tech. This is Darknet Diaries. I found a really big spider by my front door the other day, and I tried calling Amazon Web Services to take care of it, but no help, strangely. I decided to just try talking with the spider and pleading with it. Well, it turns out he's a web designer, so I showed him my computer. Well, he crawled into my keyboard. He's still in there. He's under control. This is Darknet Diaries.
Hey, Jack, what do you call a fat computer?
What?
A Big Mac. Get it?
Yeah, well, you can't call a computer fat. It's not PC.
I can call it anything I want to. That's the file system, damn it.
The only dates I get these days are updates. This is Darknet Diaries. I'll sign off with one last tip for you. If you do go on tour and visit the Darknet, you should always wear a bulletproof vest, just in case you get hit with a screenshot. This is Darknet Diaries. Why did the capacitor kiss the diode? He couldn't resist her. This is Darknet Diaries. I was once asked in an interview if I'm any good at Microsoft Office, and I told them, I excel at it. And the interviewer asked me, was that an office pun? And I said, word! This is Darknet Diaries. And even though the only dates I get are updates, this is Darknet Diaries. We just released a new album, and I'll have a link in the show notes if you want to take a listen. Now, even though when I see people rate this show a 10, I always assume it's in binary, and they're really giving it a 2. This is Darknet Diaries. I played Minecraft for the first time the other day. Want to know what I think about it? It's a blockbuster, and it's groundbreaking. This is Darknet Diaries. I don't like ultra-wide screen monitors because the loading bar on them is just like so long. This is Darknet Diaries. Oh no, my robot's trying to run away. Quick, grab the botnet. This is Darknet Diaries. I tried teaching my mom how to build a PC, but all we did was make my motherboard. This is Darknet Diaries. My New Year's resolution is 4K. This is Darknet Diaries. You might be wondering what my political association is. I'm Alt-Tab. This is Darknet Diaries. What happens if you severely overclock a PC? It goes up in frames. This is Darknet Diaries. Someone asked me the other day, what's an Ethernet? And I said, oh, that's what you use to catch the ether bunny. This is Darknet Diaries. How does a computer get drunk? It takes screenshots. This is Darknet Diaries. Why did the online spy go to art school? To learn how to draw conclusions from incomplete information. This is Darknet Diaries. One time, I went into a client's data center to do some work on their servers, and I found a computer that was so old, its IP address was 1. Just the number 1. This is Darknet Diaries.